I love spinning sock yarn. I less love knitting socks, and I least love wearing socks, but I do wear socks on videos so no one has to look at my feet because it's not that kind of channel. Hello, fiber friends. Welcome to the October Spinning Frolic. My goal here is to spin a 4-ply sock yarn, and I want it to be as consistent as I can make it, even though I'm using different supported spindles, like different weights, different styles. I think it's an interesting challenge. I like the kinds of challenges that get a little more technical. Now, if you're not a technical spinner, don't freak out, it's okay. You can just spin with vibes, and that's fine too. But sometimes I like to be a little more technical, and so for those of you who do enjoy that, I know you're out there, I am going to grab my spinning control cards and show you how to use those when you're spinning whatever, but I'll demo them using my supported spindles today. So let's get right to it. The fiber that I'm spinning today is 70% merino wool and 30% tussa silk. This is gloss from Knit Picks. I'm very curious to try some sock intended yarn that it would biodegrade. That's what I'm interested in trying out for durability purposes, because a lot of socks are blended with nylon. The nylons do give them strength, and so they don't wear out as fast. You don't have to darn them as often, but silk is a very strong fiber. So I'm a little curious to see how a wool silk blend holds up. First things first, this is a lap bowl kind of. It goes between your legs, and then your spindle can have a place to rest and spin around. I'll have links to everything. It'll all be in the description. Just go there if you're interested in any of this stuff. This one is the one I pulled out first because it looks like half of a pumpkin. And that was my initial inspiration, was pumpkins, because it's that time of year. I get my roving. I go to the end where it's wispy, and then I just kind of move up a little bit. You can feel where if you're pulling too close, it doesn't budge, and then you can move a little bit, kind of tug, move a little bit, give it a tug, and there it is. That is one length, one staple length of this roving. I am going to fold this over my finger so that it's just kind of taking it in half. That's why we call it spinning from the fold, because I folded it. Get it? I make sure when I stop spinning from my last previous session, even if that was a moment ago, I always make sure that I leave it fluffy on the end. I make sure that I don't ever compress it down, because when it's fluffy, I can tuck it into the new fiber supply and I can just keep going from there. I do want to give myself a little room to work, so I kind of back up and then put it back on the shaft so that I have a little more space. Then I can give it a flick and I can kind of start drafting. The initial draft can be a little tricky. I kind of have to get it started, but then once I feel it kind of releases, and then I'm like, here we go, and I can just keep going from there. So if you're a beginner, it's totally fine. Let your twist build up, and then you're gonna hold on to it and you're gonna spread that twist out. And then you only really have a little bit to worry about because you're drafting at a time and you're spinning at a time and you're not spinning and drafting at a time. It's one or the other, simpler. But once you really get comfortable with the supported spindle, there's something else you can do. You get the spindle spinning, and then you make sort of a loop of your fingers that the spindle can rest in so it doesn't fall down. And then rather than pulling against the spindle, because that would knock it down, you pull against your pinch, and while you spin, you kind of open and close that pinch a little bit so that the twist can move into your drafting zone. And that means that it does make it a little faster, but it means that I can draft while my spindle is turning. And it's so much fun. Like, once you really get it going, it's one of those things that make you kind of go, oh my gosh, what am I doing? How is this happening? It's like magic. All right, let's do a couple more of those because it's just so much fun. Once I've drafted out, I give it a little tug. If I feel it sliding, I know that I need to put a little more twist in there or it's not gonna hold up. I had one spin that I was doing and I tried to do a low twist single on a spindle. And when I was taking it off the spindle, it kept falling apart. It kept breaking. It was so sad. I just, you know, at a certain point, I was just so frustrated. I just kind of yanked the whole thing off. I think if I could go back and fix it, I would have just stopped, you know, here and there and added more twist to it. But it was very disappointing for me. So I know that we like to put extra twist sometimes just to make sure it's not going to fall apart. But that can give us kind of a dense yarn. And while I want my sock yarn to be sturdy, I don't want it to be tough. That's not very comfortable. I always back up a little bit because the end part where I'm still working on it, that may or may not have consistent twist compared to what's already been wound on. I take and set it down in the groove of my wraps per inch tool. If it wiggles when I rub my finger over it, I know that it has space in the groove on either side, so it may be smaller than that groove. And if it has no room or if it's like really sticking up on top, then I know that it's not fitting down in there, so then I know it's too big for that groove. That helps me narrow it down. When I look for the twist angle, it can be very hard to see the twist angle unless you're spinning something that has multiple colored fibers within the single. It's just hard to see. So here's a little trick you can do. You can fold a piece in half and do a ply back. And then you can check the angle of the ply back. Now I make sure I get a little distance on this. I don't want it to be too short. That can also kind of give an inaccurate angle. And so this is going to ply in an S direction because I'm spinning it in a Z direction. I can put my pencil across there. It will show me where that angle of twist is. I am clocking this one about 20 degrees. Give or take. Again, this isn't perfectly accurate. It's never going to be perfectly accurate, but we can get an estimate. This is my other Tibetan style spindle. It has a long spin time. This one has a metal tip and it spins forever. It's very similar to the pumpkin, and that means that the yarn I get from this spindle and from the pumpkin spindle, the yarn is very similar, which is convenient if I want all my singles to be the same. Let's take a look at the yarn on this spindle and compare it to the pumpkin spindle to see if I'm drafting and giving it the same amount of twist to get that consistency that I'm looking for. As I'm checking the wraps per inch between these two, this yarn feels a tiny bit thicker than the pumpkin spindle yarn, and I think I need to draft this one a little thinner. I'm going to say this one has a 55 wraps per inch and the first one had a 60. I'll do the same ply back trick for this yarn to check the twist angle. All of this yarn is fresh. I'm sure that's going to be a question people ask. What if it has sat on the spindle? All of this yarn is freshly spun within the last day, so I'm pretty sure that these are going to be consistent from one to the other. But if it has sat on the spindle for a while, you might want to just get a little fresh spin on there and then check that rather than checking old stuff that's been sitting. I am getting, again, probably about a 20-degree angle of twist. This is a very kind of a medium-ish twist in the softer range of things. If I wanted it to be very firm, I would be pushing it up towards the 30 or even the 40. And if it's down by the 10, that's where I'm going to have trouble, like that other spin I was telling you about, where it was just falling apart as I was trying to get it off the spindle. We don't want that. But 20 is a good spot to have a soft yarn, but it has enough integrity to hold up. And I'll show you how we're going to make this durable for socks when we get to the plying section. So let's add some challenge. The next spindle that I got out was my Mingo Asho. It's such a beautiful spindle. This one has a glass whorl at the very bottom, and the rest of it just tapers up to the tip. It also has a very long spin time. It's a very fast spin. I broke it. I felt it was struggling. It happens. I'm just taking this part off, and then I am laying this over the fiber supply, and then I'll get some twist in there, and then I kind of just let it catch. And then there. Once it catches, we're good and we can keep going. You don't have to leave your finger in the fold if you don't want to. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. As long as it kind of keeps its organization, you can just fold it over, take your finger out and hold it from the bottom so that the loop is above where my fingers are, and it works just fine. Now you might notice, as I'm spinning with this one, it is very fast, but it doesn't spin quite as long as the other two spindles that I just had out. And that's because the base of this is so compact. When all of the mass is closer to that center of rotation, it means that you're gonna get a very quick spin. It's like a burst of speed, but it's like a cheetah. It goes real fast and then it has to slow down real quick, take a break. So it is fast, I get a lot of twist, but it doesn't go as long, which means to get the same amount of twist in the same distance of yarn, I have to give it a couple more bursts of energy. I have to give it a couple more spins to keep up with the other spindles. And this is where it starts to get a little technical, but in a fun way. I hope in a fun way. Especially if I'm doing these back to back, I can feel what the yarn feels like. My fingers are sensitive to it because I've had practice. I can kind of feel it when I handle the yarn as I'm winding it back onto the spindle. But there are ways that you can check your yarn diameter as well as how much twist you have in there. This spindle is so fast. It gives me those bursts of energy. So I think this one is going to have more of a difference than the previous two had. And I can already tell this one is thicker. It's spinning up thicker. This one's more of a 50. The Straddle Creek that I did prior to this spin was 55, and that first pumpkin spindle was about a 60. So I'm just getting thicker and thicker as I go. I think you can tell visually on camera that this one's thicker. So I'm gonna have to work on drafting this one out thinner. But let's check the twist angle and see how much twist we're getting in there. Wow, okay, I am still right at that 20-degree angle of twist. So I have the right amount of twist for the right drafted distance of this yarn, but I need to be drafting it finer to make it more consistent with the other two spindles. There are a lot of variables going on when I'm adding twist to that drafted bit of yarn. I like to sort of eliminate some of the variables. If I'm adding twist and adding twist, I want that to be my variable that I'm paying most attention to. And with my hand, I'm gonna reach to about the same distance each time, because that means I know how much twist needs to go in there. So all I have to worry about is how much twist. And once I figure out how much twist I'm getting from each flick of my spindle, it makes it a lot easier to have that consistency when I'm giving it the same distance each time. Next, I have my beautiful, beautiful Crivelli spindle. Again, I'm going to put the floof on that folded over floof and kind of tuck it together. Maybe give it a little head start. There we go. This spindle is not as heavy, but it is impeccably balanced. And even though it has a lighter weight, it's, oh my gosh. When my fingers are feeling tired, I feel more comfortable spinning with this spindle. It's lighter, it doesn't require as hard of a flick to get it going, and so it's easier on my knuckles, you could say. But even though it's a lighter weight spindle, it still goes for quite a good amount of time. This Crivelli spindle is giving me about a 55 wraps per inch, so it's a little closer to that Straddle Creek, the second spindle I was using. When I check the twist angle, I'm maybe a little bit under the 20. So I need to give this one a little bit more twist, but the draft is good. I'm gonna go enjoy a little spinning on a beautiful fall afternoon, and I will see you when I'm ready to ply. I'm back. It is indeed a different day. It took me a few days to get all of the spinning done, but it is done. So it's time to ply. Here's a nice close-up of all of these beautiful cops. All right, how am I gonna get this all off of these spindles to ply it up? I have a plan. I have my go-to handy-dandy trusty plying blocks. These are from the Dancing Goats. They have holes drilled in them, and they're heavy, so I can put the spindles in there and set them next to each other. But it doesn't work so well for spindles like this, just because this can't really sit in there. It works fine for spindles that have something to sit in there. So I'm gonna put these two in my plying blocks, and then I'm going to have these two probably in a basket or a bowl. Something where they can roll around but they won't get stuck. I'm gonna go find something real quick. I think this box will do great because it's smooth. It doesn't have, like, you know, reeds or wicker or anything for them to get stuck on. And they can just sit right in here and sort of unroll. Maybe I'll go this direction because I'm not sure. Yeah, this direction. And that should work for those. And then I can put these in the plying block. Like that. And then in here and in here. And I'm tipping it so they're not exactly like, it's hard to tell. They're not exactly like this. I have one of them that's tipped to accommodate that one of these shafts is a little longer than the other one. And then I am going to put these all into a plying ball. This is something I especially saw in action when I was in Peru last year. I think this one's gonna pull up better if I have it on the floor. Yeah, I think that's better. All right, so basically what I'm doing here is getting all 4 of these lined up equally and wrapping it into a ball, just like you would hand wind a ball for knitting. The point of it is that I can manage these slowly and catch any issues without having a whole bunch of active twist coming in there quickly and getting things jammed up. I want to make sure I don't have any pigtails, and I want to make sure that they are wrapping together evenly and not getting stuck or pulling back or caught up on one of the spindles. And doing it this way allows me to stop and easily address anything without having to worry about the twist going into it at the same time. And then when I do ply, I'll be plying straight from the ball, and that's gonna go really smooth, really fast. And I'm looking forward to that because it's a lot of fun to ply from a plying ball. I've done it for 3 plies and 2 plies, but I've never done it for a 4-ply. So that's pretty exciting. I think while I'm winding this, it might be a good chance to talk about my Spinning Frolic series. It came from the idea that, just like you might be familiar with a quilting bee, people used to have spinning frolics where they would get together and get a bunch of spinning done. I thought it would be a good way to have a little extra community involvement on my channel. So each month I am going to put out a video and it's gonna have some kind of yarn, and I'll invite you to spin that type of yarn or whatever the theme might be. And you can submit a picture of your yarn, and then in the next month's Spinning Frolic video, I will do a little montage where we can show off everyone's hand-spun yarn. I was nervous that I was gonna have this idea and put it out there, and then I would be the only one showing up in the next video, but you all really pulled through, and I hope that you had a lot of fun doing it. Let's take a quick look at everyone who submitted pictures for a tweed spin. If you'd like to be featured in next month's Spinning Frolic, I would love to include you. All you need to do is spin yarn that you will use for socks, like an intentional sock yarn. It could be for crochet socks. It doesn't have to be knitting yarn. It doesn't have to be spindles. Use whatever tools you have, e-spinners, treadle, spinning wheels, it's all fine, as long as it's an intentional sock yarn. There will be a link for you to submit your pictures in the video description. I haven't chosen a theme yet for November, so if you have any requests or ideas, let me know. It could be a little bit more of an abstract theme too, if you'd like. We can have themes based around color or vibes, whatever sounds fun to you. Let me know, give me some ideas, and I can't wait to see your sock spins for next month's, whatever that theme will be. I'm almost done winding up the plying ball, and look at how close these are all finishing up. I real quick reached all the way down to catch the end of the pumpkin spindle that just ran out. So I'm like winding like this because I didn't want it to lose all its twist on the end there. There, that was that. And there's such a tiny amount left on the rest of these that I'm just gonna say this is the end of the 4-ply right here. And that gives me my plying ball finished and ready to ply. Yay! I am doing this in a way that I learned in Peru with an authentic Peruvian canti. That's what I'm gonna do, and then I'll have a completely spindle spun 4-ply sock yarn. But how much twist should I put into this ply? Good question, I'm glad you asked. This is some old yarn, but it is sock yarn. It's meant to be for socks. So I took a strand of this and I finger twisted my 4-ply sock yarn together, and I laid it on the twist angle card next to the commercially produced sock yarn. And I checked what kind of a twist angle I would need to have them match, and it looks like the commercial sock yarn is just above a 20-degree twist angle. A canti was developed for traditional Peruvian textiles. Andean weaving would be what this kind of yarn would be for, and so it puts a lot of twist in the yarn. So I'm gonna actually have to be careful that I don't put too much twist in the yarn, because this is a spindle that will really want to do that, and you'll see why in 1 second. I can't tell you how useful it is to have a smooth box for doing all this stuff. I'll have that down there on the floor, and I'm keeping it a little bit behind me. This has a clasped ring on it, meaning that the ring was carved at the same time as the whorl so that it rattles, and it makes a pretty cool sound when it gets going. I think you'll hear it in just a second. I put this yarn over my shoulder so it stays out of the way, and then I get it going. And it goes. Here, let's do another one. That was a good one. Tension spreads the twist around, so as long as I kind of let it dangle and move my hand a little bit, it lets that twist up into the next section of the yarn. And then I can pull it up and wind it on. It's looking pretty good. I think I'm closer to a 30-degree twist angle, and I want to bring that down to a 20. So I'm going to spread a little of this twist along the working area that I have and let it chill a little bit. It's very energized at the moment. I thought I was putting less twist in it, but I looked at it and I was like, that's still high to like 30. This just wants to put so much twist in. You have to hold it back. It's ready to go. If you hate that I'm using the twist angle card, that's fine. I said at the beginning, you can spin for the vibes, and that's totally fine. If you like the way your yarn looks, then that's the way your yarn should be. So ply it like that. And that's all there is to it. You don't have to be super duper fussy with the twist angle cards. I guarantee you that our spinning ancestors were not using twist angle cards. Use it if you like it. Don't use it if you don't like it. And it's not right or wrong either way. I also think it's fine to use it until you get a feel for it, especially because of the way that a lot of us have learned through the internet, and we don't have a person next to us looking at our yarn and saying, that's good, or that needs more twist. So having a gauge for the various things can be a way to know the range you're shooting for and have a way to check and measure that. Okay, I have to stop talking to you all and focus because I have so much twist. Like, it's ridiculous, and I need to concentrate. So I'll be back when I have a finished skein of 4-ply sock yarn. The plying is finished, and this is what it looks like on the spindle. The original was, what was it? It was 100 grams, about 3.5 ounces, and I got it all on this one plying spindle. It will not take any more yarn whatsoever at the end. That's how you know your spindle's full. It gets too hard to keep it going, and it just starts to annoy you. That means it's done. But anyway, this yarn's really pretty. I think that I definitely hit that consistency goal that I had, and I think it's beautiful. I think it has the beautiful shine to it. It's consistent. I did the whole thing on different spindles every step of the way. I'm really, 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 really in love with this spin. There it is.